Hello, everybody. This is Ian Trevethan. I am the Education and Outreach Manager here at the Sternberg Museum of Natural History. And I am here for our afternoon live feed of bringing the dome to your home. I am going to sort of continue on the theme that I was sort of discussing yesterday and even the day before that about the process of building your own exhibit pieces, for lack of better words. Now, this is not a up to snuff of what I would consider to be a permanent exhibit in our museum gallery, but the purpose of this particular exhibit is actually a traveling museum program, and this will be called From Mythology to Paleontology, which, the idea is to use a fun way to compare basically make believe animals to the fossils and organisms that may have actually, in part, given rise to what these mythological creatures became. I have been doing a little bit of work on my dragons, which will be part of this exhibit. And the goal here is to create as lifelike representations as possible of pretend things, so that we can compare them to some of our paleontological and zoological specimens. We're going to look at kind of what I've been doing on the dragon that I've introduced you to yesterday. So without further ado, here's the dragon. And if you remember yesterday, the eyelids were a bright red color. They were actually like this kind of color. And I've spent most of this afternoon sort of blending it with the foam body and to try to give it as life-alike appearance as possible. What I'm doing is, if you look over here, I've got a picture of a reptile. I think in this case, this might be an iguana-like reptile. And I was just sort of looking at the mouth structure, the eye structure, the nose, and trying to figure out how to make my dragon look as lifelike as possible with using reptile-like features as a reference. You could say I spent a good portion of my day looking at lizard lips, which I'll come back to. I'm going to kind of show you how I did this. Again, this started with a pretty inexpensive, pretty low budget tool here. This is Crayola Model Magic. You can kind of get this at Walmart, Dollar General. Remember, I'm in the middle of Western Kansas during a pandemic. So I've got to utilize what I can get to and what I can afford. So while I have learned that there are better, more high quality and more practical tools that I could be using to better my product, right now, this is what I'm working with. This is what I've been working with. And as things get a little bit more normal and things get back to the way they used to be, then I'll start to upgrade my materials. What this Model Magic stuff is basically it's a lot like a paper clay. It's an air dry clay that doesn't need baking. It does not dry hard and brittle. It does dry and it does become firm. So you want to work it and get to your final product, but then you leave it for about 24 to 48 hours, and it becomes almost like a foam substance. So this is what I've found to be a very, very usable material to use. And that is exactly what I used to create the eyelid here and our horns and the teeth here. I have added teeth since yesterday. Again, just sculpted out of the Model Magic stuff. It's cheap, it's easy, there's a lot of it. And it seems to work for my purposes. So, I'm really kind of happy with the way the eye turned out. It needs a little bit more work, but it definitely changes the feel of the animal. What I want is for people to be able to look at this and think, "Wow, is this guy going to blink at me?" So here, let me flip this over, and I'll show you kind of where I started. So I did. Whoops, I'm filming and working at the same time. This is a very big challenge. All right, so what I did is, this is the Model Magic, and it's the exact same stuff as this. And I put, first of all, I put several of these sort of worm-like pieces, and, you can see how I've been doing the texture. So, you just basically, again, using my lizard lips here as, I want to really get that texture. And you notice that this guy has a very prominent upper lip, but he doesn't have a very prominent lower lip. And then he's got sort of gums out here with the teeth in it. So I'm going to try to replicate that kind of structure, as well as the eyes. This is not a very good shot of the reptile's eyes. But again, I was using a very similar reference photo to look at the structure of the reptile eye. So that's what I did, is I basically used the Model Magic in several worm-like structures. And I would not have learned this technique were it not for one of my student interns that has been helping me. She is a master of sculpting, and she showed me kind of how she does it. So sometimes the master becomes the student in this case. So thank you, Caitlin, if you're watching. So this is kind of, my starting point. Like I said, we start with the Model Magic, which is exactly what I was, the same technique right here is exactly what I did for the lower eyelid. And then you can see for the upper eyelid, it's just several sort of rolled, sort of wormy-like structures that we sort of mushed together, and we made that top eyelid. So now that it's dry, you can see, it's a nice lightweight. It's rigid, but it's not brittle. You can see some nice detail here. And like I said, this is one sort of base coat where I use sort of a burnt umber. I think that's what the color is. Raw sienna. I lied. That's a raw sienna color. So basically what I'm doing now is, I've got this is my lovely high-tech palette here. I've got some acrylic paint. And what I'm going to do is take a fine brush here, and I'm just going to, sort of get the tip of my brush with a little bit of black paint. And I don't want it so overpowering that I glob paint all over the thing that I'm painting. But, I'm going to start to highlight. You can kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm going to start to highlight, the folds and the wrinkles, and try to, sort of make these structures pop, basically. So, you'll have to excuse my shaky camera work. When I thought about doing this for a live feed, I didn't think about who my camera person would be. And Reese, unfortunately, is busy with meetings. And I don't have very many people left in the building. So I'm doing two things at once. And if you want me to focus on something or look closer at something, definitely throw that in the comments. And I will do my best. But for now, what I want to do is just get some shading. So you can already see that it's starting to change the way it looks. Just with a little bit of shadowing and shading I've done. And you see here, I got way too much paint on my brush. So this is, Christina, this is the dragon that I was working on just before you left. Hi, Christina. Our former paleontology collections manager is joining us from. Where are you at now? Are you at Harvard, or you're one of the really cool places? But anyways, she was asking, what creature is this? So this is my dragon. I think you met my dragon, Christina, before you left. But this is, after all the craziness happened and the lockdown and stay-at-home orders happened, I kind of got sidetracked and put my my projects on hold until, well, we were sort of had an idea of what this thing was all about. Unfortunately, I lost my student helpers. So I realized that I better get to work on this because now I only have my own set of hands instead of 3 extra sets of hands. But we are still, I'm still working with my undergrad interns, and they're still giving me good ideas and tips and pointers. And I will be talking with them later this afternoon via Zoom. So we're still working as a team, just from a distance. So as I was saying, really what I've discovered, and I make a lot of strange things in my spare time. As I've said a couple of times previously, I'm a massive Star Wars fan. So I have built many, many, many Star Wars props. I have a couple of sets of armor, of trooper armor. I built lightsabers. I've built prop weapons. I've built robots. So what I've discovered is really the suspension of disbelief is what I'm after here from my target audience, which my target audience for this program is ages, I would say, maybe pre-K all the way up through adulthood. What I've discovered is if I can do something, present something that will captivate both children and adults, their parents, that is a successful education program. So that is my goal here, is to be able to not just captivate the children, but I want to get the adults in on this too, because, well, adults like to have fun, don't they? I mean, just because you're grown up doesn't mean you have to stop having fun. So what I've discovered in the prop making I've done with all these other weird things I do is that really it's the amount of detail that really sort of takes it to the next level. Now, I probably could have stopped with where I'm at now, and this would have been fine. This would have done the job it needs to do. But what I really, really want people to do is to be able to get right up there and not be so sure that this thing isn't going to blink at them or move and look at it. So, or, look at you. So that's what I'm going for. So with these really fine details, and remember, this is just the second coat, that's where you can get right up close and start to kind of suspend your disbelief, that, wait a minute, maybe this animal is real. So this is sort of what I'm doing right now is, I really want to bring out the highlights. The other thing that putting dark highlights does for you is I can also blend, I'm using 2 different materials. I am putting this sort of paper clay-like material onto a foam, a medium density foam. And I want to make it, basically seamless. So here what I'm doing is I'm taking some of my raw sienna. I feel like Bob Ross. This is a happy dragon. There are no accidents, or no mistakes, just happy accidents. This happy accidents is all I do. Yeah, we're gonna make some happy dragons. All right, so I'm gonna add some of that raw sienna in with some red and some black that I mixed together. So I just really want this to sort of take the same color and texture as the foam does. Now, obviously, when you get right up there, foam, this is foam. It's got these little holes in it, so I'm not going to be able to exactly match up the texture. But I think this is where this is what I mean when I say suspension of disbelief. That people in general, because of these details, are going to be willing to suspend the knowledge that this, in fact, is a make-believe creature made out of foam. Basically the same stuff that you would find in your couch. So, I want to do a good enough job that people are willing to sort of set that aside and imagine this animal as a living organism. So that's part of the goal here. Now, I could do a program called Mythology to Paleontology with just my fossil casts, my zoological specimens, and I could probably do a pretty good presentation, just using some pictures and maybe some models. But the other real goal behind this level of outreach program or presentation is the experience. Now, I've done a bunch of programs in-house here at the museum that's designed to do the same thing. I mean, coming to the museum itself is an experience. People come here, they see the specimens, they see our fossil preparators, they see our zoology collection, our living and taxidermied and preserved animals. They see our biologists and zoologists at work. They see our paleontologists here, if they're really lucky, if they look closely. So, coming to this museum is in itself an experience. And then, above that, we like to try to get people through the door and, offer them some special, what's the word? Adventures, I guess. So, we've done Harry Potter themed stuff. We've done Star Wars themed stuff. Oftentimes we'll do just straight up, it's Fossil Day. We're going to focus on a certain age or era of fossils. We celebrate Darwin's birthday with Darwin Day, where we do usually an evolution-focused set of public programming. So, coming to the museum is in itself an experience. But again, I live in Western Kansas, and, Hays is sort of really probably the largest city between, maybe Manhattan and Colorado, and Denver. So there's not a lot between us and anywhere else, So there are a lot of people that live in rural areas that either, just don't have a lot of time to make it out here, maybe don't have a huge amount of money that they can spend on, driving out here and spending a day or two checking out the museum. So when I go out to some of these places, my goal is to give them a museum experience, but not necessarily in the museum. I'm trying to bring that museum experience to other people. So that's really the goal behind this thing. And this particular program or exhibit or whatever you want to call it is meant to function in a couple of different ways. I can set up in a small space, in a small area like a school or a library, a place that has limited space. And I can do much more of a straightforward presentation style program, where I'm up there and I'm explaining what these things are, how they, how to compare them to the fossils, point out all of their evolutionary novelties and all that kind of stuff. The other thing that this is designed to do is to be at places like festivals, So, for example, before the world closed, I was planning to go to many of the libraries in Western Kansas. I was planning to attend a couple of Comic-Cons. And, I've been invited even as far out as October to go to an Oktoberfest just south of Hays. I can't remember what city it is at the moment. And I was going to bring these, the bigger version, which basically the setup is a large 10 by 20 walk through kind of covered tent like area where I can set up these exhibit pieces, these display pieces, and it sort of tells its own story. We've got text panels we're working on, and people would be able to literally walk through this space and look at the text panels, look at the specimens and models and exhibit pieces on display, and it would be very, very much like a miniature museum experience where they would walk out of this feeling like they went through something, that they actually came, went in one side, came out the other, and they sort of experienced all of these animals and the museum specimens, and the museum staff is there if they want to ask a question or get more in depth, but it doesn't necessarily depend on me standing there doing a presentation style or lecture style program. So there are two sort of versions of this. So I can go really big, or I can go modest and do it much more as a presentation. So that's sort of the goal behind this. And you can see just now I put way, way, way too much paint on my brush, so I got to kind of blot it out. So again, you can kind of see now, where we started and now where we're going, and the idea is, we're going to, try to come all the way, full circle to where, you've got a very lifelike eye. And what I've done here, I don't know if you can see it in the camera here, but I've done some clear coat. I wanted it to look like, the lower eyelid was sort of wet just around the rim there. Like this animal might blink at you. I'm really, that's what I'm going for. And it's those little details that make the difference. And that's, we're trying to produce as quality, an experience or, as quality of a visual, inclusive, tactile experience as possible with, the limited resources we have, which does remind me, I did want to sort of mention, it's not to make you feel sorry for us or anything, but right now the museum is closed. And that means our entire revenue stream is basically shut down. Most of our revenue comes from our visitors who come to see us. And this time of year is usually pretty busy for us. So this would be our really the time of year that we're making most of our revenue. It also comes a little bit from doing programs both inside and outside of the museum. Again, both of those things are shut down. I'm not going anywhere because the schools are closed and the libraries are closed, and we don't want to have big festivals with more than 10 people gathered together. So we're virtually cut off from our revenue stream. So if anyone out there, and I understand everybody's kind of hurting right now, so don't feel like obligated, but if somebody feels like they would like to donate to the museum, if you go on our website at sternberg.fhsu.edu, there is a donate button. Should you or anybody out there feel inclined to help us out, every little bit helps. The other thing people can do is we have a gift shop that has at least several items online that can be purchased. So again, if you would like to support our endeavors, and kind of help us get through this weird time, we would definitely appreciate that. Any little bit helps. Even the fact that people are watching, it looks like I've got maybe 21 or so viewers watching me live right now. That really does make a huge difference. It means that there are 21 people right now that I am talking to live in real time, and that's huge. So, these are weird times. We're adjusting as best we can, and I think if it turns out that this sort of social distancing thing continues on, say, past May, past June, which I think it probably will. I'm going to find some way to make some of these programs available online. Certainly the program that we're building right now, because people have been watching it happen, I would definitely find a way to make this available to the public through some platform or another. I'm not exactly sure whether it would be a Facebook Live thing or whether we would pre-record it, but we're going to have to adjust. So again, this is sort of our shadowing now. And I'm going to try to add a little bit of, I've got this sort of, I don't know what color you want to call it. It's chocolate brown, but it's a metallic chocolate brown color. And I'm going to squirt some of that on here. And it's sort of a neat metallic color. And what I've discovered is I wanted to have my dragon scales have sort of a metallic look to it. And this stuff is dark enough that it complements the shadows really well. So, this is a glittery dragon, sort of. So again, we're just painting details on the eye. So now you kind of get an idea of what I get up to. And before this particular part of the process gets really boring to watch live, I'm going to switch up and sort of show you what else I'm up to. So my computer went dormant, so I can't show you the picture. But you noticed the picture that I had pulled up of the reptile earlier. I was really specifically looking at the lips. I was looking at lizard lips. And the reason I was doing that was because I decided I liked the way that this particular technique worked out. It really, really changed the dynamic of this character, of this display, and made it so much more lifelike that I decided, you know what, I need to work on fleshing this out a little more than I have it right now. So I'm going to do a similar thing with the ear holes. We call that tympanium. And I started looking at the mouth. And as I was adding teeth, sorry about the camera work there. As I was adding the teeth, I thought, yeah, the teeth are good. It definitely makes it feel like a whole dragon, but something wasn't right. And what I realized what wasn't right was this guy is missing his lips. So, of course, I had to go and research what lizard lips look like. You think I would know because, I have a background in vertebrate paleontology and I've done all sorts of comparative anatomy and, I've specialized in marine reptiles. So you would think I would know what lizard lips look like, but it's always good to refer to something. So that's what I was working on with this particular little strip here, is trying to figure out the best way to give my dragon lizard lips. And like I said, my study of the lizard lips that I had pulled up earlier showed that there is a very prominent upper lip, at least on the iguana that I was looking at. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to have to glue this down, and I will paint it and texture it just like I did the eyelids. And there'll actually be a smaller lower lip and a little bit of the gum showing that will go up under these top teeth. And what I discovered was I should have probably not put the teeth in yet, and I may have to take them back out. And I need to get the lips in first. So that's next on my to-do list is lizard lips. And then I'll probably, I'll finish up with the eyes. I'll work on creating a more flesh-like tympanium. And then this guy I might actually do a little bit of fleshing out around the nostrils too. One of the things I was looking at when I was looking at my iguana picture was nostrils. And I feel like this needs a little bit of flesh too. So the next time you check in with me, I will hopefully have some of this stuff done and we'll be able to show you how it turned out, or maybe it will go terribly wrong, and I'll tell you about that too. So I think, for the next couple of live feeds, it'll be, finishing this dragon head out, and then I got to figure out how to mount it, which will be fun. And then we're going to move on to our subterranean dragon, which, as I said before, is going to be a very sort of salamander-like creature. Not exactly, but, sort of in form, very salamander, or, I don't know, tetrapod-like creature. It is going to have big teeth, and I'm going to have a tongue kind of coming out of it. So this is sort of our template that we're working towards. And I will do a lot more shaping and covering, or smoothing out and carving of the creature. So I'll show you how I do that as well. So if there are any questions for me at the moment, I am here. And if you've got any comments or questions or anything, throw them in the text box, and I will, or the comments box, and I will be glad to answer them. Otherwise, I will check back in tomorrow and show you the progress we've made, because this is something that I'm still trying to get done by the end of May. So if and when summer happens, it'll be ready to go. If not, well, then once this is finished, I will do a presentation online, and everybody who's watched the production of all this stuff will get to see the final product. All right, well, that's all I've got for today. So as always, I'm going to ask you to like and share our live feeds here from the museum, and we will see you well, no, we won't see you tomorrow, because tomorrow is Saturday and the weekend. I almost forgot what day it was. I actually thought yesterday was Friday, so I wore yellow. All right, so we will see you on Monday, and I'm not sure what we're going to talk about in the morning, but I'm sure we'll find something. In the meantime, you have a great weekend. Stay healthy, stay happy, stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.